Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're diving into something you brought up, which I found really interesting. How people actually learn to spell in Chinese.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
Totally. You shared this research, a dynamic, interactive model of Chinese spelling development. And your interest, as I understand it, is really about getting a handle on literacy in a non-alphabetic system.
Exactly. What are the key pieces for mastering Chinese spelling?
So our mission today is basically to unpack this model, try and get a clear picture of how this really complex skill develops.
Sounds good. And this article, it's from the Educational Psychology Review in 2022, and it really tries to fill a gap.
A gap. How so?
Well, we actually know quite a bit about how kids learn to read Chinese. That's been studied a lot.
Right.
But learning to spell it, that process is much less clear.
Okay.
And most of the theories we have about spelling, they tend to come from studying languages like English.
Where sounds and letters match up, more or less.
Precisely. Very phonological focus. But Chinese characters don't really work that way, mapping sounds to symbols directly.
So those models don't quite fit.
Exactly. They don't capture the whole picture for Chinese. So this research aims to give us a more unified and tailored model just for Chinese spelling.
Okay, so the big question they're tackling is, what are the core skills you need to spell in Chinese? And how do they interact and change as you learn?
That's the heart of it. And they propose this dynamic interactive model. It points to four crucial types of skills.
4 skills. Okay, what's the first one?
First up, phonological skills.
Phonological. Okay, that's about the sounds of the language,
Yeah.
right? Like understanding syllables, tones in Mandarin.
Exactly. Understanding and manipulating the sounds. Mostly Mandarin in the research cited, yeah.
But wait, if characters don't directly map to sounds like letters do in English, how important are these sound skills for spelling Chinese? In English, phonics is huge for spelling, especially early on.
That's a great question. And the researchers acknowledge that difference. They know phonological skills are central in alphabetic systems.
Right.
But even without that direct letter-sound link, awareness of the sound structure, syllables, tones, like you said, it still plays a role, especially in the early stages of learning.
Interesting.
Yeah, studies they mentioned show that this kind of phonological awareness is important for learning to read and spell Chinese. It's just the connection works a bit differently.
So maybe less about sounding out in the English sense and more like holding the sound of the whole word or syllable in mind as you try to recall the character.
That's a good way to put it. It's about the auditory piece, even if it's not a one-to-one mapping. Okay, so that's phonological. The second key skill area is visual motor skills.
Visual motor. Okay, that clicks immediately. Writing Chinese characters seems incredibly demanding visually and physically.
Totally.
All those intricate strokes and the specific order you have to write them in, it's not just seeing it, it's doing it.
Absolutely. And the model suggests these skills, handwriting, copying characters, are particularly vital right at the beginning.
When you're first learning to form them.
Exactly. Think about the fine motor control, the visual attention to detail, remembering the stroke sequence. There's a lot of research backing this up, looking at everything from drawing skills in preschoolers to how learning stroke order works, the importance of handwriting practice, copying skills.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it really emphasizes how foundational this physical visual motor part is early on.
It really does sound like learning choreography for each character. You need the steps, the sequence.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, so we got sound awareness, phonological skills, and the physical act of writing visual motor skills. What's number 3?
Number 3 is visual orthographic skills.
Visual orthographic.
Sure.
Orthographic relates to the writing system itself, right?
Exactly. This is about knowing the visual structure within the characters.
Okay. Like what?
Like recognizing radicals, those components that often give clues about meaning or sometimes sound.
The building blocks.
Yeah. And understanding how characters are put together from these parts. Developing a sort of sensitivity to the visual patterns and rules of the system.
So it's moving beyond just seeing lines to seeing the internal logic, the recurring parts.
Precisely. You start recognizing familiar shapes and how they combine.
That makes a lot of sense.
And the model suggests these visual orthographic skills become increasingly critical as learners get better.
So more important later on.
Yeah, the research they cite really points to that. Learning to spot these visual patterns, understanding the graphic complexity, even statistically learning the regularities and how components appear together. It all feeds into this visual structural knowledge.
Got it. Okay. Sounds, physical writing, visual structure. That leaves one more. Number 4,
Number 4 is semantic skills.
semantics, so meaning.
Exactly. Understanding the meaning of the characters and the words they form.
And how does knowing the meaning help you spell it?
Well, knowing the meaning can be a really powerful cue for remembering the correct character, especially because you might have characters that look quite similar,
Ah.
but mean totally different things and maybe sound different too. The meaning helps you pick the right one.
So context and meaning help you narrow it down when you're trying to remember the visual form.
That's the idea. And the model suggests that, much like visual orthographic skills, the influence of semantics grows as learners become more proficient.
So it becomes more important later, too.
Seems so. Research on morphological awareness, understanding word parts and their meanings, backs this up. Meaning and spelling are definitely linked.
Okay, so those are the 4. Phonological, visual motor, visual orthographic, and semantic. But the model isn't just a list. You said it's dynamic and interactive. What does that mean? How do they work together?
That's absolutely crucial. They don't operate in silos, you know?
Right.
They're constantly interacting, influencing each other all the time as someone learns.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Imagine you need to write a character. Your visual orthographic skills might help you recall the general structure, the main components.
Okay.
Your semantic knowledge, knowing the meaning you want to convey, helps confirm you're thinking of the right character, not a similar looking one.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe your phonological knowledge helps you recall a component that gives a sound clue if it's that type of character. And finally, your visual motor skills execute the writing. See how they weave together.
Yeah, I do. It's like a team effort for each character. Strength in one area can compensate or support another.
Exactly. A network, like you said earlier. And it's dynamic because the way they interact changes.
Which brings us to the developmental part you mentioned. How does their importance change over time?
Right. This is a really key insight of the model. It paints a picture of shifting reliance on these skills.
Okay, how so? Early stages first.
In the early stages, the model suggests spelling relies much more heavily on those foundational skills. Basic visual motor skills, just getting the strokes down correctly.
During the movement.
Yeah. And also phonological skills. Often kids use pinyin, the romanization system, to help remember the sound associated with a new character they're learning to write.
So early on, it's a lot about the physical execution and the basic sound link.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Getting the form right and associating a sound, even if that link isn't perfectly systematic like in English.
Makes sense for beginners. What happens later as learners get better?
This is where the interesting shift happens. As learners gain more experience, the model proposes that visual orthographic skills.
Recognizing the structure and patterns.
Right. And semantic skills.
Understanding the meaning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those become increasingly important. Eventually, they become the dominant factors driving accurate spelling.
Dominant. More so than sound or just muscle memory.
That seems to be the idea. It allows for more efficient character retrieval based on visual logic and meaning, rather than just relying purely on the motor plan or the sound.
Wow. So you move from concrete actions and sounds to a more abstract understanding of the system's structure and meaning.
That captures it perfectly. This shift is a really core part of the model, and it highlights a key difference from how spelling might develop in purely alphabetic languages.
That is fascinating. It really emphasizes the visual and meaning-based nature of Chinese writing in the long run. So, pulling back a bit, what are the big implications of this model? Why is it important?
Well, the researchers see implications on 2 levels, theoretical and practical.
Okay, theoretical first.
Theoretically, it gives us a more comprehensive and unified framework. It really tries to account for the unique features of Chinese writing rather than just adapting models from elsewhere.
So a better theory for this specific writing system.
Yes. It brings together these different skills, which we kind of knew were involved, but puts them into a single interacting system.
Okay, and practically, how does this help, say, teachers or learners?
Practically, it could offer new ways to think about diagnosing and helping learners who struggle with spelling Chinese. By understanding these different components and how their importance changes, educators could maybe develop more targeted interventions.
Okay, so like if a young child is struggling.
It might point towards needing more support with, say, visual motor coordination or basic phonological awareness.
Right.
But if an older learner is having trouble,
It might be more about strengthening their knowledge of character structure, the visual orthographic part, or boosting their vocabulary and understanding of meaning, the semantic part.
exactly. It helps pinpoint where the difficulty might lie, potentially leading to more effective support, not just practice your spelling more.
That makes a lot of sense. Tailoring the help to the specific need and developmental stage.
Precisely.
Now, the focus here is clearly spelling, but they do mention reading. How does reading fit into this picture?
Yeah, they definitely acknowledge reading's importance. We know reading development is crucial for overall Chinese literacy.
Of course.
While this model is about spelling, it sees reading and spelling as, related but distinct skills. They reference the idea of them being like two sides of a coin.
Connected, but not identical.
Right. Understanding reading development provides the broader context, but this model zooms in specifically on the cognitive processes behind spelling itself.
Okay, great. So we've really dug into this dynamic interactive model. Let's try to boil it down. For someone listening, what are the main takeaways?
I think the biggest takeaway is that learning to spell in Chinese is this incredibly multifaceted process. It's not just about sounds, especially as you get more advanced.
Right.
It's this dynamic mix of visual skills, both physically writing and recognizing internal structure, plus sound awareness, plus understanding meaning. And crucially, the balance shifts.
The emphasis changes as you learn.
Exactly. That developmental shift is key. It gives a much richer picture than maybe we had before.
And for you, personally, reading this research, what was the biggest aha moment or the most striking insight?
For me, it was definitely that growing importance of visual orthographic and semantic skills over time.
Yeah, that stood out to me too.
The idea that while you start with the physical act and the sound link, real mastery seems to come from deeply understanding the visual logic and the meaning embedded in the characters.
It feels quite different from the early heavy phonics focus in English spelling instruction.
It really does. It underscores the unique cognitive demands and maybe elegance of the Chinese system.
Definitely. Now, a good model often sparks new questions. Does this one suggest areas for future research? What are we still curious about?
Oh, absolutely. Loads of questions come up. For instance, how does this play out for bilingual learners, kids learning Chinese and English, for example?
Do they rely on the skills differently? Does one language influence the other?
Exactly. That's a big area. And also, instructional methods. How can teaching best support each of these skill sets at the right time?
Like, should early instruction heavily feature motor practice and pinyin, and then explicitly shift focus to radicals and meaning later on?
Potentially, yeah. Figuring out the optimal instructional sequence based on this developmental model would be really valuable.
Those are great questions. It makes you think. Which leads us to a final thought for our listeners to chew on.
Okay.
Considering how technology is changing things, maybe less handwriting, more typing, how might the balance of these four skills shift in the future?
Ooh, interesting point.
Could visual orthographic recognition and semantic knowledge become even more critical if the physical visual motor demands decrease somewhat?
That's a really provocative thought. Does the way we interact with the script change the cognitive skills we rely on most?
Maybe. This model gives us a fantastic framework, not just for understanding how spelling is learned now, but for thinking about how literacy in such a visually rich system might continue to evolve.
A valuable lens for the future, for sure.